So another type of shifting that's happening is between speaking as and for oneself, and then the we. The return of the we. So it ends with we are the witness.
We are witness, yeah.
Yeah.
Witness continues to be one of the most special songs for me personally. And again, it's one of the songs, as I mentioned, I'd say maybe half of that record is in regular rotation at shows at various points, both band and solo shows. But Witness is one of my most requested songs. It's one of my favorite songs to play in any format. And also, it's personal. A friend had asked me to write a song for her wedding, for her non-religious wedding. But she wanted, I was playing music and some songs that they had requested, so I learned a couple songs. But then she wanted me to write a song. She wanted an original song for her wedding, which was the first time I'd really written such a specific assignment before. And I was really nervous about it because A, it's someone's wedding and a friend's wedding. But also trying to think of saying something that felt weighty for the occasion without it being religious. So this song was never intended to be a gospel song. It's kind of ironic that the non-religious song then ended up being the cornerstone of the gospel record. But I feel like it makes sense because of everything we've talked about of like how I see gospel music and
witnessing love here and now in us.
Well, and also at the wedding. So one of my favorite things about some traditional church weddings is there's a point where the clergy person says, or the officiant says, addresses the people who are attending the wedding and says, will you do everything in your power to support this couple in their marriage? And it's one of my favorite, like I'm getting teary just thinking about it. Like I find it so moving. There's everything about a wedding I think is really special and wonderful, no matter how they've chosen to make that commitment to each other. It's special that they've invited people to be a part of that, whether it's 2 people or 300 people, But when you get asked that and you're attending a wedding, it kind of puts it all in perspective. Like it takes a village to do anything in this world, whether it's make a record, stay married, raise a child, all of these things. Again, it takes all of us to make it happen. And so I was thinking about that, and I knew that the ceremony was not going to probably have that component in it, but again, very secular wedding, and that wasn't a piece that I think that they had really thought of. But I was like, I wanted to incorporate that idea and that power of like us all being present together to witness this moment together.
Yes.
So that's kind of what went into the writing of the song. And actually the original lyric of the first line of the song was, we are witness to love and life. We are witness this man and wife. That was the original lyric because it was a heterosexual
for
couple.
the event, yes.
And originally I was only writing the song for that occasion. I wasn't intending to sing it anywhere else. But then it was kind of around that time I was thinking about the songs for this record, and I actually brought it to Steve Call, who recorded the record and produced the record. We had a couple sessions where I was just going over the songs and what I was thinking about with the record, and I was like, and I kind of feel like this song fits the spirit of the record, even though it's not really gospel per se. And he's like, oh, you have to include that. And then so I just tweaked that line, which actually the tweak was a way better line, where it says, so now it's, we are witness to love and life. We are witness in the darkest night, which I think is a way more powerful line anyway. But I also was glad I changed it because even though I've sung it at subsequent weddings, most of the time I've actually sung it. Sometimes I'll ask if it's a man-wife couple, I will ask them, do you want this lyric or the other lyric? But oftentimes I also was able to sing it after Minnesota approved gay marriage, which is actually in 2013, I believe, right?
Yes, I think
so.
It
was 2013. Yeah, it was right around my birthday in 2013, and so that was right after this record came out. I actually was asked to sing at the Unitarian Church. They were doing a day where they were doing like 50 weddings of gay couples, and I got to sing it at that, and it was so cool to be a part of this like huge celebration and sing that. And I was so grateful. I didn't have to tweak it then. It was already, that's how the song was. But again, it's way more powerful too that it's not limited also to a romantic relationship, obviously.
Yes.
So that's, I mean, aside from the gender, I think it's just a better song that way. But that song, and this is getting back to a question you asked at the very beginning of our conversation about how things have changed in the last 10 years and how I feel about singing these songs now. Obviously, these are still just songs I love to do with the band and people respond to. But that song in particular, We Are Witness, during the pandemic, I always loved singing that song with people, with the bandmates on stage, with the audiences singing along. It's always been a big sing-along song at weddings where people are physically together. And then when we didn't have that, I really, I mean, we all just realized the power of being in a room together.
Absolutely.
You know, like
Yes,
doing this in person as opposed to on a YouTube screen. Not that that wasn't a great kind of coping mechanism, and it's still a great way to connect.
I was stuck on the other side of the planet, so I was grateful to
so
be able to do,
But I mean, I think we all really realized the power of being together. And so now when I sing that song, I really consciously and usually literally say it out loud, dedicate it to the people who are in that audience, whether it's 10 people or, 100 people. Like, after these few years, I don't think we can ever take it for granted. I wrote it for a wedding where people gather together, but really any time we gather together is special and sacred. And I think a lot of us who've experienced these last few years will never take that for granted in the same way that we might have before.
Yes.
And so I feel like Witness is important to me in that way. But I also sang it online during those times. I actually did, for a while, I did a Sunday morning sing-along at every morning at 10 or 11 in the morning. I just did one song, but I did it live, and I would tell people what key it was in, and the idea was that they could sing along from their respective places.
Yes.
So it's just to be one song, and trying to find those ways to connect virtually, which was really fun, but it was not the same. So getting to sing Witness with people again has been really, really special. So that's an example. But I'd say a bunch of those songs on the gospel record took on deeper meaning, both during the pandemic and after having a child and getting married. I mean, a lot's happened in my life since the recording of The Devil Hasn't Won. But Anyway I Do, that Dave Carter song we were talking about earlier, is another one that during the pandemic, it was just it's such a song of comfort, and encouragement that I found myself wanting to sing that a lot. Because that's one of those songs, and that's why I covered it or chose to record it, not just sing it live, is that's one of those songs that every time I sing it, I feel really good. And it feels different every time, but it's therapy for me. And so if it does even a little bit of that for someone else, great. But honestly, it's totally selfish. That song is completely selfish. It's because I love it. And there's one of those chord changes, it's that E minor change in the verse that just every time I hit it, I just oh yeah.
Well, if it enables you to feel joy, true joy, rather than just to feel happy.
Yeah.
Then that is contagious.
Yeah.
Isn't it? And
I hope so.
And there's something that we keep on kind of circling back to, I think, about these different ways of coming into the presence and removing the impediments to connection. And it seems like when, and you referred to doing so with people before. I think the witness.
I love that. The witness. I love that. Not witness,
and
but witness. No, I love that. That's so
witness
great.
Is key. So and also generally in our culture, a lot of the focus on witness and particularly being in love, there's focus on romantic relationships, of course. But I feel that the community, these songs are celebrating what happens when you and I, whoever the you and I are, come into the presence and become the witness of what powerful thing is happening there. And the powerful thing is shifting in and out of sinning, letting the light in, ever becoming new, back to the song that was on the 2 records. And in that one, it's powerful that there's actually strangely, a lot of the themes in the record that I made when I was working on the book about Sarah. And then so Sarah Morris, and then that prompted me to use her songwriting practice, write a new collection of 10 songs myself. Those were the first collection of 10 songs, or first songs that I'd written since becoming a Christian mystic myself. And a lot of the same imagery and sense of the experience of life in my record Hum is here too. So I Let Love In is one of the songs, Gonna Let the Light In here, and Offer Me a Mustard Seed, I'll Feed on It All Night. There's a reference to getting tall from a mustard seed.
Yes, which is, I mean, that's a more direct, but that's one of probably the more direct biblical references at all in the album. But I love that, idea, and that was really a mimicking of true traditional, like spiritual gospel music. That wasn't one is that repeating percussive line, nothing too musically ambitious.
But I think
because it gets the spirit, right?
Yeah, something growing from a mustard seed, and then we were taught the emergence, like letting this emergence to
growth.
happen.
I think that's what I mean. The theme for me on this record. There's probably, obviously, you could just do it in one word, it'd be what, but love, or as you said, witness. I love that. I think that is ultimately what this record is about in all ways. But I think in terms of the other themes, I think it's like, often I would say like, trying to like restarting.
In you.
Yeah, but I think in a lot of the themes are about that. It's like lots of ways, it's like these ideas of like, how do I reset, restart, reset. I don't want to say start again as much as like you can't.
That seems like
you can't
like not honoring
what's happened. Right.
We're not starting again, but there is this refreshing.
And I think that is one thing I've never liked about the term born again, aside from maybe some of the actual religious stuff that comes with some people who use that term. But I think the bigger problem for me is like that idea of, we're just going to forget everything that you did. It's a clean slate. So, and it's like, well, also that's not how the world and other humans work.
Right.
Like, it's never a clean slate. You just got to deal with the mess you've made. And you can definitely be a better person and become a better person. But to me, that's growth, it's not forgetting.
Yeah.
And you can't make other people forget. So it's just not realistic to how we operate in the world.
Yes.
To think we can do that. Even if spiritually you believe that, I feel like if you're talking about interacting with other humans, you can't expect that everyone else will forget
Absolutely.
things you've done or how you've been acted in the past.
Right. Or be willing to like dismiss it.
I know
as
I
irrelevant
can't forget what other people have done. So
if I've decided I'm a new person now, to just dismiss.
Don't you know? Like no. But the other, so I'd say that growth piece, but also the nowness, and I think that's related to what we were just talking about, is the idea of like, and no waiting, and we are witness. A lot of these are about living in the moment, and like the moment is now, and we shouldn't be thinking about what's happening next. Again, whether God's going to fix something, or live in the past of things that you maybe did wrong, or other people did to you. I mean, I think that's a lot harder. I don't know which is harder, to forgive yourself or other people. They're both challenging. But living in the now, and like, what can we do now? And to me, that's always what I've come back to in my theology and how I think of the world is, I don't know what's coming up next. I don't know. I personally think there's a higher power of goodness, a spirit of some kind. I don't know. I call it God for ease. I don't know what it is. I don't know.
It seems to encourage you to grow, though.
Right, but I feel like there's something out there. That's how I feel. But I get that not everyone might feel that way, and that's fine with me. But ultimately, all that really matters is because I can't know all these things or what happens when we die or all these things that I think preoccupy a lot of our time and energy thinking about, but we can't control all that. All we can do is, well, the only thing we can control is what we do here. And so thinking about that really informs a lot of my decisions and in my experience, the more we on this earth trying to right by ourselves and other people, the better our lives are here. And if you do believe in God and a heaven and all those other places, then that's just an added bonus. But I feel like ultimately what really matters is like your life is better if you're better.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and hopefully other people's as well. But again, from purely selfish terms, it feels like, why wouldn't you want to be better and grow and experience more of the world?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It feels like joy feels nice.
Yeah, joy feels nice. Yeah, that's the summary, actually. Joy is good. And so the more joy we can all experience, the better. I mean, that's ultimately, actually, what you say is actually, there's a lot of pathos to that, because I feel like there's so many problems in the world that you think, I just feel like that person is just unhappy. Like a lot of the people who do the most damage seem like unhappy people.
Yeah,
and if they embrace joy, maybe they.
Back to prophecy and the thunder, sleeping in the rain. It makes sense that when we are feeling down, then it's good to be on the lookout for opportunities to experience that joy. And when we're not able to shed the skin, that's a word that really struck me. That was one of the prompt words for
really?
that songwriting challenge, and it really fit with my experience of growth through letting go and surrender of impediments to
I've
presence
always
and
loved that
connection.
idea of the shedding the skin of
Yeah.
like the snakes have. And I just think if we all could do that a little bit more, I think we'd all be better off.
Yeah. So in your song New, so I shed my skin, let it fall away, and then a little bit later I bloomed in spring. And for me, I also was experiencing when I was doing the Artist's Way book and then composing the recent collection of songs, this same imagery of shedding and imagery of blooming coming together. It's an interesting kind of paradox. Just what falls to us to do is to commit to letting go and shedding.
Well, it's
the
life
impediments.
cycles.
Yep.
I feel like, whether it's a caterpillar and a butterfly or, all these things that are, it's natural. I think maybe it's just humans trying to get back to our natural state of being more like these other creatures in our world, right? With it kind of naturally do this. They shed a skin, they grow a new arm or whatever, like I feel like we can't physically do those things, but we can kind of mentally or spiritually do those things. And I think thinking of it that way, and that it's not just once. I think, again, for me, that's another thing I feel really strongly about is I personally don't believe that, redeeming yourself once is enough, because again, we don't just make one mistake in our lives. And so I think thinking of it just like people think of like, meditation, it's a practice, right? Of like thinking of like, okay, well, yesterday was crap and I wasn't my best self, but like, what am I going to do today? Like you can't change what you've done. You can only like do what you have now. And so I really believe that. So the natural life cycles to me is a really apt metaphor for us. I mean, we are natural things. Although we sometimes don't seem like it.
But humans, you were saying maybe humans trying to get back to being natural. We can choose to renew ourselves and be open to being renewed. The difference between the human being and the caterpillar was the caterpillar is going to become the butterfly.
It's true, and it will stay the butterfly, whereas
and
we
it
do not
happens
stay like butterflies. I think that's the difference. We go back to being the caterpillars.
But by virtue of being complex, erring humans, we can be that much more intentional about that this
Right.
this feels this is the way,
Right.
and I choose this.
I'm choosing to fly like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But it's so interesting that you that song knew that you were talking about. It talks about shedding the skin and then blooming spring. That obviously is a very seasonal song, and I wrote it that way. What actually inspired it was Thoreau. I finally read on Walden Pond or whatever it was. I finally read it as an adult. I kept, it was one of those things you always read quotes from your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Read it for my book club. We're like, yeah, none of us have ever read this book. We should actually like read the whole book. And we did, and I found it ponderous and awful. I hated it. I really hate it. I mean, there's all these but there's these beautiful nuggets, which is why it's quoted so much. There's all these like lovely little insights, but as a book, I found it unbearable because it was basically this guy who had money who just chose to live in the woods and then kind of was telling you how to live your life and how if you're not doing it this way, you're doing it wrong. And like, but he was from this place of privilege, and I was just like, but I found the whole tone, I hated it. I found it really hard to get through. But there were all these lovely quotes that I pulled and put in my notebook, and I'm very lyrically inspired. I'd say most of my songs tend to be inspired by a lyric or a lyrical idea or a line. And this one started with there's a line from the book that said, he's watching the seasons and what's happening outside, and those are the lovely parts of the book. But his observations, the more scientific observations, those are what I kind of loved most about the book. And but he talked about something growing fast in fall like corn in night. I loved that line. I was like, that's amazing. Or I don't know if it was exactly that. I might have tweaked it for the song, but that idea that the corn growing overnight, that's what it was.
Well, that's what resonated with me, because like the opening lyric to the final track on my record, it's called Reapers, and the opening lyric is, "What is sown shall be reaped, the crop grows in my sleep."
Yeah.
And I feel like this idea of that I think fits with as we find ourselves thinking about intentionality and commitment at the end. Like the farmer, and this fits with, I think, a lot of parables, like Jesus' parables. We sow the seed. We can't control exactly what happens. Then there is this period of being asleep, and the crop grows in my sleep, like corn in the night.
Well, and it just happens sometimes without you being aware of it. And I feel like we are like that.
Yes.
I mean, like I feel like there's times when there's a reason why we have like both physical growth spurts and maybe, spiritual growth spurts, but I where it's like it's happening in the background, but you just see it all of a sudden at once. And but when I wrote that song, I actually had the idea of it was actually I thought of it as being a teenage girl or a kid who kind of grew up overnight, like faster maybe than they were expecting or should have. And got into some trouble. And so originally I saw that song as it's been interesting how people that's one of those songs that people can really interpret it different ways of who's the you, right? And who's the I. It could be a parent-child, which is kind of what I was originally thinking. And this was well before I was a parent, but that was kind of what I was envisioning. Or it could be a lover situation, or it could be a God person situation. So kind of seen in that way, but again, the same idea, right? It's renewal, right? It's like, how do I be better and try and heal these things? And again, what seemed more appropriate once I started with corn, it started in fall, then it went through winter, and then it went through spring, starting again. So it seemed like the most natural way of talking about that. And that song is different in terms of lyrically. It's the most different than anything else on the record of my originals. And partly because it was written earlier for a different project. I mean, the themes are all the same. But one of the reasons I like writing gospel music in a more traditional sense, like in terms of form, musical form. So like Witness is like this, Waiting is like this. And then even some of the gospel songs I've written for other records, like Revival Train, is like the idea that you have not just a simple sing-alongable chorus, but every other you might have repeating lines in the verse. So really, you only have maybe 2 lines a verse to say anything of import that's different from the rest of the song,
have
because
to
everything
make
else
them
is
matter.
repeating, right?
Yeah.
You're just saying the same thing, like we are witness, and no waiting. I might change whether I'm waiting, we're waiting, no more waiting, but still, it's the same basic concept. So you only have 2 lines a verse to say anything, and you don't want to get too poetic or precious about it because you want to say it. Because you don't have the context of all those other lines to support it and create a bigger narrative. You just have, it's very economical. And I like crosswords, and I think it, in my mind, writing a gospel song in that format is very much like that. It's kind of a puzzle. You have to kind of figure out, what do I say? And in that idiom, I like to not be too, I want to use interesting words, but not like, I don't really want to use really highfalutin vocabulary either that I might in some of my other original songs. Again, it's not meant to be too poetic. I just want to say it and have everyone know what it is and sing along and be there with you. It's not meant to separate you from, again, that witness, right?
Yep.
It's not meant to separate you from the audience. It's meant to bring them in. So in that way, new is different. In that it's not written in that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
but
more of a
it's-
story song, because
Yep.
that was originally first a record of story songs. But again, the themes were so appropriate, and I thought it would be fun to record it in a different way for a
Yeah.
different project.
It's interesting that thematically it's still about witness. It's still about witnessing the process of shedding and blooming and growth and love, being love, allowing love and light to be let in, and yet it is more wordy in a way where in the newer songs that you added for the project, you were exploring new ways of removing impediments
Yeah,
to
really.
connection.
And talking about shedding, I mean, it was a lot of, I think with those songs, I mean, I do it with all my songs, but I feel like in those songs in particular, I feel like I was just always cutting away the chaff, like this needs to be simpler.
Yep.
And I don't want to overthink it. It needs to, again, it just needs to, economy, being succinct, I think was really the goal with these songs. And
Yeah.
I think for the most part that was accomplished with my originals anyway. And then of course I wove in these other songs that felt important to me. But again, I feel like singing them now, because they're so simple, I feel like they are timeless in that way. And that way I will always want to sing them. And will always resonate with audiences. And this album, I mean, I sold out of physical copies a long time ago, and that's one of the reasons why we want to release it on vinyl. Was it's been available digitally for a while, but we haven't had physical copies, and it's my most requested record. People want to buy it, and I always kind of wanted to have it on vinyl because this has a kind of more classic American roots sound to it, like The Band or Mavis Staples. Like those are the kinds of gospel stuff that I really love, where it has kind of like a roots blues kind of element to it, and it felt like it deserved to be played on a turntable with people also because of that idea of, and that's how we listened to records growing up before, I mean, we did for a lot of my childhood. We listened to records on the record player and listening to them together, and you couldn't go anywhere or do much else. You were just there. And I think there's something about that, again, being present and with other people that happens around a turntable that doesn't happen if you're, plugged into your iPod or your phone or
private.
whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Secluded.
So I think having it to experience music in that way, both sonically and physically, I think is really special. And also that artwork too, that's on the cover of The Devil Isn't One, which is a painting done by my friend Emily Murphy, who's designed many of my projects, but she did that painting for me for the cover. And it's of these two hands holding each other, or one maybe lifting the other up or just supporting. in red and yellow, which is funny because I realize I'm in the same condiment colored
Yes.
color scheme right now. But I was also really excited about having that be in large format. So having that image, and I was always and that was my concept for the record, because again, I felt like it most described what the album was about. I didn't want like
visualize its connection.
Yeah, and I didn't want it
love.
to be like I didn't want people to be on it. I didn't want it to be too specific, but I want it to be human hands.
Yeah.
To me, that's
It's not emphasizing the victorious defeat
or
of,
something coming down from above
of the
or,
devil.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was the other thing. It is called The Devil Isn't One, which is funny because this was before Trump was elected. And but in general, I actually am an optimist. I mean, there's a lot of awful things going on in the world and with humanity, but I'm of the general opinion that if you look at the long arc of history, I'm still more happy that I'm alive now than 200 years ago.
Yep,
So
the devil hadn't won, the devil won't win.
Yeah, devil hasn't won. I feel like maybe not yet. Anyway, cautiously optimistic.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't even know if I don't know if I really believe in the devil, except as a metaphor for all the crap we do.
Yep. When we're erring.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
when we're missing the mark.
From the bad part of that life cycle that we were talking about.
And in that, and responding to that context and witnessing that context, you wanted to be with us 10 years ago, and you wanted to be new for us 10 years ago, and now you want to be with us anew,
Again.
and new for us anew.
Yeah, I guess restarting, right? We're really excited about this. Again, this version of the album, but also like getting to share it with people and be back at the Dakota.
Yes,
and,
the full cycleness of it.
I was really excited by the idea of going back, and it's been a little while since I played at the Dakota, so it's always a special place. But one of the reasons I love playing at the Dakota is not just because it's a great room, and actually the first time we played it, it was right after Prince had auditioned all the drummers for his band. Remember, he was at the Dakota for like a week. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, I do remember now.
This is in January of 2013, which is when we released the record. He had been there like all that week, and we were playing on like the Friday or Saturday. And so it was funny because someone was joking like, oh, Prince opened for you. I'm like, I don't think that really counts.
All of Prince's auditioning drummers.
But anyway, it was funny because my parents flew out from Connecticut for the show, and I told them, I was like, Prince played here. And they were like, ooh, like they were suddenly really impressed, with their daughter. But I would say one of the other reasons I love playing the Dakota is not just because you're playing this hallowed stage that all these great artists have played on, and some of my heroes and shearers. I mentioned Mavis Staples. I've seen her do some shows there, and amazing. But also the stage is such that it's a thrust stage and it's a club, so people are pretty close to you, which I really like.
Presence, again, connection.
Togetherness.
Business.
But I like that people are eating and drinking. To me, especially for this kind of show, I mean, I love playing a good listening room like the Cedar, places like that. But for this show, I want the interaction. I want the engagement. It changes the energy on stage, but also, and of course they have a great piano, which Ben is very excited about. But we play better because it's a smaller stage. So we're closer together. And this theme of withness, I mean, from a physical standpoint, I found that our best shows as a band are when we're physically closer. Like we're spread out. Like even if it's a big stage, like at a festival, we try and get our mics closer together and not try and take up the whole stage.
Yes.
Because it's like we just play better. It's like the reverberations. It's like a human, I don't know, there's probably some physicists that would have a word for it, but like where it's like there's literal vibrations that happen when you're close to people physically. Yes. And I don't think it can be recreated, even if you can hear all the music they're making in your monitors or your in-ear things or whatever. It's not the same. It's like being physically together makes us play better.
Yeah, the physicists could explain it, but you meanwhile have the emotional, spiritual experience
Yeah.
that you are witness to.
All I know is it works better when we
Yeah.
play closer together. So,
But you do know it from experience.
Exactly. And the Dakota offers that in spades just because
Yep.
of the way it's configured. And so I'm really excited to be able to do that again with the band.
Yeah, and I'm sure, witness again, I'm sure many of the viewers are excited to be there in that intimate space with you and the band.
I hope so.
Exactly 1 month from today.
That's right.
From today, when this is being broadcast on MCN6. So that is Sunday, November 26th.
Yep. And 7 p.m. show, so you can have dinner or not. And you can bring your family or not. I know it's right after Thanksgiving. So sometimes people need a break. Or maybe they want to bring their family members or there. It would be good for all ages and all generations. Again, that's, I think, why this album has been so popular with people is no matter where you are in your life, and which is why I think it ages well, both for me 10 years later,
Yep.
as well as where people are in their lives, whether they're, in just starting out to, kids, or whether it's, like people who've lived full lives. I feel like these are themes that just resonate with everyone and make people feel good singing these songs. So if you want to sing, you won't have to. There won't be a spotlight on you, but there will be opportunities for sure if you want to sing.
All ages, it's non-denominational.
For sure, and not Christian, not religious. It's just it's for humans. So if you're a human, and you want to experience joy being a human, that's
Joy is
what
nice.
this show. This is what the show is going to be about. It's going to be about joy and singing.
In conclusion, joy is nice.
Joy is nice. That's the theme. So be with us and experience joy.
Thank you very much for being with us, viewers, today. This has been Back to the City. I'm Simon Calder. This is Ellen Stanley. And we hope that you will be with us at the Dakota Jazz Club on the 26th of November. We'll see you there.
One way to go.